Hey, Will King here. Today on the Build Show, we're talking about powder baths. That's right, a powder bath. And I'm putting my design hat on today, and I want to talk to you about what goes into planning a powder bathroom, how to construct it, and some builder tips on how to make them perform better for your family. So let's go in here and take a look at it. So if you're like me, you really like to have a powder bathroom at your house. And when we're designing all the houses that we build, or a lot of the ones that we build, we actually draw in-house, we always try to incorporate a powder bath. And even sometimes families forget about how important they are, or how useful they are. And it's something we always bring up and talk about the location for them for their guests. So like in this house and a lot of the houses that we're building, they're at least 2-story with a basement typically. And we always try to put the powder bath on the main level, just off the living space, of course. That way when all the guests are over and you're entertaining, there's a quick place for someone to go to the restroom without having to go in somebody's bedroom or go into a bathroom full of maybe your kids' stuff or one of the occupants' personal belongings. So talking about the size of powder baths to start with, ideally I try to have like a 5x6 area. You can probably get by with something a little bit smaller than that, but I don't like them so tight that it's just hard to get into. And I feel like in the last few years, especially from a design aspect, powder baths have gotten kicked up a notch. People are taking some pretty bold moves with things like black paint colors and really elaborate countertops, backsplashes, tile, wall sconces. People are taking a big step out there when they're designing powder baths. But from a builder standpoint, though, I want to talk about, I guess, some dimensions and some key things to remember when you're laying them out and when you're building these things. To start with, a toilet, 30 inches in the clear is really the minimum. And so that's 15 inches from center line of the toilet in both directions. And if you can go 35, I think, or 40, it's even more comfortable. And then we get in front of the toilet, you got to have 2 foot of floor or 2 foot of clear space in front of the toilet. And that's going to allow the occupant to be able to get in and get in front of the toilet, obviously, to use it. The water location stub out is very important on this particular toilet because actually it was roughed in too close to center line originally, and we had to move it over because this toilet actually hugs the wall. So you really want to make sure you get the specs for everything in this plumbing wise before you start. And that really goes for any bathroom. Wall mount faucets that you see in this bathroom, we do a lot of those, I feel like, in powder baths. But if that's the case, you have to make sure that when you're laying everything out, the center for your drain is marked. That way your sink center is marked and you know exactly where to rough in the wall mount faucet, because the plumber may have to cut out some studs and add blocking to get it perfectly lined up. Also right above this one is going to be our wall sconces. And that, I think, from an electrical standpoint, is probably one of the most important things to get right, because wall sconces really need to be mounted in a hard box. They don't need to be laced in the wall like you may can do with a vanity light if it was overhead. Wall sconces, because of their weight, they need to be mounted to a hard box, screwed off and fastened very well. And having that lined up with your sink centers is really important. One thing I'll talk about from a builder standpoint too is going to be insulation, or controlling the sound inside of a powder bath. Typically they're going to be really close to living space, and you want that to be the case because it's convenient, but you have to think about privacy for the people using this bathroom. So I would encourage you, like this one, to use a product like Safe and Sound in the walls. That's going to really help dampen it inside this bathroom. A nice solid core door is definitely something you should consider. I personally am not a huge fan of pocket doors on powder baths. You certainly can do it if space is limited. It's not a terrible idea. In-swing door, like this one, I would say, at a minimum, like a 2.8 door would be what I'd want to see on a powder bath. If you have room, by all means, put a 36 inch or a 3 foot door. But at a minimum, I would say, 2 foot you can get by with. To me, if I turn sideways, my shoulders about rub a 2 foot doorway going in. So I find it uncomfortable. But if that's what you have to use to get it into your space, I would definitely consider doing that. And then I think the other part is ventilation. So we talk about bathroom fans. Obviously, you're going to have one inside of a powder bath, but they really serve two purposes. Not only is it pulling a lot of air or pulling air out of your powder bath, it's also providing a little bit of noise, which can be a good thing for the occupants. But what I have found personally is that over the years, we've really swapped to mostly Panasonic bath fans, but they're so quiet that you have to think about that in a powder bath and consider maybe going to a louder option and installing that, just because they get the noise factor. And you can pay attention to the scones rating on those fans and see which one maybe is a little bit louder to give you the privacy that you're looking for inside of a powder bath. And one thing I like to talk about is the floor. So the flooring in a powder bath, and this really goes for any bathroom installation. Now the one that we're in today just happens to be hardwood floor, but we do a lot of tile in our powder baths. That's more common than hardwood, I feel like, and definitely in all of our other bathroom locations where there's going to be a shower or a tub, we're going to be using more, a tile product. Not only do you want to have a good subfloor that's secured and screwed down so you can minimize any movement there, you really want to make sure that you have a good tile underlayment, like a decoupling mat. There's several manufacturers out there that make them. USG has a really good product that we've used. And that's going to decouple that tile from the subfloor. And then if there's any movement in the framing from shrinkage or foundation settling, just the slightest movement, it's going to allow that tile to be broken free from that frame, and so it doesn't necessarily move and crack like you would see if you didn't have a good mat like that. All right, so I hope you learned a little bit today about powder baths. I know it's not our normal video, but I felt like it was a good design point to bring up into some of our content. If you're not already following me on Instagram, please go do so. It's @WillKingBuilds, and just remember, iron sharpens iron, so keep grinding, keep watching these videos, and we'll see you right here on The Build Show.